Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Finance, the net sales minus the cost of goods and services sold. The amount of collateral a customer deposits with a broker when borrowing from the broker to buy securities. A permissible difference, allowing some freedom to move within limits. The boundary line or the area immediately inside the boundary. An amount beyond the minimum necessary. The margin of victory. The blank space that surrounds the text on a page. He jotted a note in the margin. Finance, the net sales minus the cost of goods and services sold. Finance, the net sales minus the cost of goods and services sold. The amount of collateral a customer deposits with a broker when borrowing from the broker to buy securities. An amount added or deducted on the basis of qualifying circumstances. An allowance for profit. A reserve fund created by a charge against profits in order to provide for changes in the value of a company's assets. A permissible difference, allowing some freedom to move within limits. An amount allowed or granted, as during a given period. Travel allowance. A sum granted as reimbursement for expenses. Put on a fixed allowance, as of food. The act of allowing. He objected to the allowance of smoking in the dining room. A permissible difference, allowing some freedom to move within limits. Of a ship or plane, sideways drift. A disposition to allow freedom of choice and behavior. A permissible difference, allowing some freedom to move within limits. The act of tolerating something. The power or capacity of an organism to tolerate unfavorable environmental conditions. Willingness to recognize and respect the beliefs or practices of others. Form the boundary of, be contiguous to. Lie adjacent to another or share a boundary. Extend on all sides of simultaneously, encircle. A decorative recessed or relieved surface on an edge. Provide with a border or edge. A line that indicates a boundary. Enclose in or as if in a frame. The boundary of a surface. The boundary line or the area immediately inside the boundary. A strip forming the outer edge of something. The rug had a wide blue border. The size of something is given by the distance around it. The boundary line or the area immediately inside the boundary. A line enclosing a plain areas. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. Informal terms for money. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. Something that remunerates. They saved a quarter of all their earnings. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. Something won, especially money. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. An open fabric of string or rope or wire woven together at regular intervals. A computer network consisting of a worldwide network of computer networks that use the TCP/IP network protocols to facilitate data transmission and exchange. Yield as a net profit. This sale netted me $1 million. Make as a net profit. Construct or form a web, as if by weaving. Catch with a net. Net a fish. Conclusive in a process or progression. The net result. Remaining after all deductions. Net profit. A goal lined with netting, as in soccer or hockey. A trap made of netting to catch fish or birds or insects. Game equipment consisting of a strip of netting dividing the playing area in tennis or badminton. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. The excess of revenues over outlays in a given period of time, including depreciation and other non-cash expenses. Make a profit. Gain money or materially. The company has not profited from the merger. Derive a benefit from. She profited from his vast experience. The advantageous quality of being beneficial. The phenomenon of sediment or gravel accumulating. Put, fix, force, or implant. Put something somewhere, firmly. Deposit the suitcase on the bench. A partial payment made at the time of purchase, the balance to be paid later. A facility where things can be deposited for storage or safekeeping. Matter that has been deposited by some natural process. Money deposited in a bank or some similar institution. The act of putting something somewhere. Put into a bank account. She deposits her paycheck every month. The natural process of laying down a deposit of something. A payment given as a guarantee that an obligation will be met. Money given as security for an article acquired for temporary use. His deposit was refunded when he returned the car. A partial payment made at the time of purchase, the balance to be paid later. A difference between conflicting facts or claims or opinions. An event that departs from expectations. A difference between conflicting facts or claims or opinions. A growing divergence of opinion. An infinite series that has no limit. A variation that deviates from the standard or norm. The act of moving away in different direction from a common point. An angle is formed by the divergence of two straight lines. A difference between conflicting facts or claims or opinions. An activity that varies from a norm or standard. Discord that splits a group. An event that departs from expectations. The quality of being subject to variation. An official dispensation to act contrary to a rule or regulation, typically a building regulation. A zoning variance. The second moment around the mean. The expected value of the square of the deviations of a random variable from its mean value. A difference between conflicting facts or claims or opinions. A conflict of people's opinions or actions or characters. The speech act of disagreeing or arguing or disputing. The greatest possible degree of something. A line determining the limits of an area. The line or plane indicating the limit or extent of something. The attribute of urgency in tone of voice. His voice had an edge to it. Lie adjacent to another or share a boundary. Advance slowly, as if by inches. He edged towards the car. Provide with a border or edge. Edge the tablecloth with embroidery. The boundary of a surface. A line determining the limits of an area. A sharp side formed by the intersection of two surfaces of an object. He rounded the edges of the box. A slight competitive advantage. He had an edge on the competition. Provide with an edge. Edge a blade. The outside limit of an object or area or surface. A place farthest away from the center of something. The edge of the leaf is wavy. Form the boundary of. Be contiguous to. Bound by contract. A light, self-propelled movement upwards or forwards. Spring back. Spring away from an impact. Covered or wrapped with a bandage. An injury bound in fresh gauze. The greatest possible degree of something. What he did was beyond the bounds of acceptable behavior. Usually followed by to, governed by fate. Bound to happen. Headed or intending to head in a certain direction, often used as a combining form as in college-bound students. Children bound for school. Place limits on, extent or amount or access. Move forward by leaps and bounds. The horse bounded across the meadow. A line determining the limits of an area. The line or plane indicating the limit or extent of something. Bound by an oath. A bound official. Confined by bonds. Bound and gagged hostages. Confined in the bowels. He is bound in the belly. Held with another element, substance or material in chemical or physical union. Secured with a cover or binding, often used as a combining form. Bound volumes. How much there is or how many there are of something that you can quantify. Add up in number or quantity. The bills amounted to $2,000. A quantity of money. The amount he had in cash was insufficient. A quantity obtained by the addition of a group of numbers. Develop into. This idea will never amount to anything. Be tantamount or equivalent to. Her action amounted to a rebellion. The relative magnitude of something with reference to a criterion. An adequate amount of food for 4 people. Printing. A block of type without a raised letter, used for spacing between words or sentences. The unlimited expanse in which everything is located. They tested his ability to locate objects in space. The interval between 2 times. It all happened in the space of 10 minutes. Any location outside the Earth's atmosphere. The astronauts walked in outer space without a tether. A blank character used to separate successive words in writing or printing. He said the space is the most important character in the alphabet. A blank area. Write your name in the space provided. An area reserved for some particular purpose. The laboratory's floor space. An empty area, usually bounded in some way between things. The architect left space in front of the building. One of the areas between or below or above the lines of a musical staff. The spaces are the notes face. Place at intervals. A job in an organization. Assign a location to. A point located with respect to surface features of some region. This is a nice place for a picnic. Assign a rank or rating to. The particular portion of space occupied by something. He put the lamp back in its place. A particular situation. If you were in my place, what would you do? Assigned to a station. A space reserved for sitting, as in a theater or on a train or airplane. He sat in someone else's place. Recognize as being. Establish the identity of someone or something. Where you live at a particular time. Your place or mine. Identify the location or place of. Locate. Take a place in a competition, often followed by an ordinal. Put into a certain place or abstract location. A public square with room for pedestrians. Make an investment. Proper or designated social situation. He overstepped his place. A blank area. Any area set aside for a particular purpose. Who owns this place? Estimate. An item on a list or in a sequence. In the second place. Intend, something, to move towards a certain goal. The post or function properly or customarily occupied or served by another. Took his place. A general vicinity. He comes from a place near Chicago. An abstract mental location. He has a special place in my thoughts. Assigned to, a job or a home. Finish second or better in a horse or dog race. He bet $2 on number 6 to place. Place somebody in a particular situation or location. He was placed on probation. Proper or appropriate position or location. A woman's place is no longer in the kitchen. Sing a note with the correct pitch. The passage that is being read. He lost his place on the page. To arrange for. Place a phone call. A blank area. The top edge of a vessel or other container. An impudent or insolent rejoinder. Botany. Either of the two parts of a bilabiate corolla or calyx. Either of two fleshy folds of tissue that surround the mouth and play a role in speaking. Either the outer margin or the inner margin of the aperture of a gastropod's shell. The margin required in order to ensure safety.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.